What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Pinnacle Pursuit. This is episode 2. I'm also going to call this like kind of the intro. I was actually talking with my dad after my first podcast episode, and he was actually explaining this to me that whenever he listens to someone talk, the first thing he asks himself is why he should be listening to what they have to say. Basically, what their credibility is to be speaking on the topic and the matter that they're discussing. So, that's what this episode is going to be about. I'm going to try to keep it around 10 to 15 minutes. Basically, all the struggles I've been through in life and my history. Now, I will tell you guys this is take number 2 for me because I tried taking one, I believe it was last night or the night before, and I was having some technical difficulties with my phone. And I also ran back through the video after I was done with it and skipped over some things that I definitely wanted to talk about in the video. And I didn't want to add more to it because it was already kind of long and I didn't want to make a separate video. And I don't like editing because this is all about learning and growing for me with this podcast, as should everything that you guys are going through is that we kind of talk about. So I typically don't edit videos, and I usually will, if I have notes off to the side, it will just be like a sticky note or something to like the main topic that I want to talk about, just so I don't get off track. Today I do have a couple of notes, which I hope doesn't take away from me looking at the camera, or I definitely won't just be reading off of this. This is just to make sure I go in chronological order with everything that's happened in my life, and so you guys can get the full gist of everything that I've been through. So just to start it off, if you guys don't know me, I've played baseball my entire life. I have always dreamed of being in the majors since I was a kid. Definitely wanted to play college baseball, obviously, since I wanted to be in the major leagues. And I grew up kind of as a utility player, but I mostly played shortstop. So the whole thing that started with me, like the biggest struggle I've been through my whole life so far, started around when I was 13 or 14 in middle school. I was getting terrible headaches, excruciating pain, where I would have to put my head down in class, had to leave class, go home maybe, and I was kind of a tough kid, so it wasn't like I was just having a headache and was trying to get out of class because I was very studious as well. So my parents and my teachers knew something was up, so we went to get some images taken. My doctor sent me to get some images taken, MRI, CAT scan, the whole 9 yards. And that night, they were looking over the images, and they said that there was something on the image that was not supposed to be there. So it was a mass, basically. That's what they referred to it as. So we went to a bunch of specialists and got a bunch of different specialist opinions on it, neurosurgeons and neurologists, and they all said that it needed to be removed. They thought it was a schwannoma, which is a type of tumor. Luckily, mine was, I can't think of the word, but it wasn't cancer. And they were all basically saying it had to be removed because it was pushing on my optical nerve, as well as my main artery that feeds the brain, which is the carotid artery. So, yeah, that's the carotid artery is the main artery that feeds blood to your brain. So, not only would I have a very high possibility of going blind if I didn't do anything about it, but I would have also suffered other consequences to my health. So we ended up choosing a neurosurgeon, and the doctor explained everything, like all the downsides, all the effects that it would have on me. He explained the worst case scenarios if the surgery didn't go as planned, which obviously every surgery that doctors like have to put you under for or whatnot, there's a chance of you dying. But this was brain surgery. It is technically referred to as a craniotomy, where they cut they cut an incision. You can't see it because I haven't had a haircut in a while. You can kind of see the line right there. So there's the start of the cut. It goes down past my ear. So they cut that. They remove part of my skull and had to stretch some of the nerves in my head to reach the tumor and then remove it. And then they had to put the skull back on and bolted the skull back to the rest of my skull with a titanium plate and titanium screws. That's the gist of the type of surgery I had, but when the doctor was explaining it all to us, obviously there's a higher chance of not coming out of the surgery with it being brain surgery. And as a 14-year-old, this is a lot of news, and I believe a typical 14-year-old would maybe shed a few tears, be extremely scared and nervous and anxious, because let alone the downsides of the surgery going wrong, the recovery from the surgery going perfect according to plan was not easy as well. But even after the doctor explained all that to me, I said exactly what I said was, how soon can we do it? Because in my mind, I was thinking about my baseball career and the rest of my life. I'm in 8th grade. This was 8th grade, and I had the surgery in the summer after my 8th grade, so going into high school, 9th grade. So I was thinking about, I need to try out for the high school baseball team. I need to start going on getting recruited for college. So I said, how soon can we do it? And the doctor set it up. And it was supposed to be a 6-hour surgery. Like I said, I had it done in the summer. It was supposed to be a 6-hour surgery, and the whole procedure ended up going 8 hours because of how much blood I was losing. It started to go the wrong way, but my doctor that I had, Dr. Van Loveren, great man, even better surgeon, he had it all in control the entire time. But one of the things that he did tell me in the hospital when I was recovering, which I got a kick out of, was the other surgeon in the room that was helping him with the procedure. When I started to lose all this blood, the other surgeon was like, he's losing a lot of blood. We need to start transferring some to him. And Dr. Van Leveren looks at the ground and he goes, we didn't lose any of the blood. It's all right here on the ground. So that was just a funny thing that he told me when I was recovering in the hospital. But a little bump in the road to the surgery was that they thought it was a schwannoma going in, like I said, but it ended up being a capillary hemangioma, which is basically just a group of blood vessels that was expanding. So it did have to be removed, but obviously it was a group of blood vessels, so I was losing a lot more blood than I would have been if it was just a mass that wasn't connected to any of my blood vessels. But yes, so I did lose a critical amount of blood. They did have to remove and stretch nerves to get to the actual tumor to start removing it. So when I woke up from my surgery, I woke up and my right eye was staring at the left wall, and my left eye was looking completely straight. Then again, I am 14 years old, so this freaked me out completely. Obviously, I had double vision, and you can actually tell in this video right now, my left pupil is bigger than my right pupil. This left pupil, this is the side I didn't have the surgery on, so all the nerves are intact, untouched. You can tell that they removed and stretched some of the nerves on this side because my pupil reacts differently to light and whatnot. It's a lot smaller than my other one right now. But yeah, so it was very freaky waking up and seeing two of everything when you've seen one of everything your entire life. Definitely didn't like looking in the mirror, but that day that I woke up from my surgery, I was determined to start recovering. I got up a couple hours after I woke up from surgery, and with help from a nurse and my dad, I started walking the halls. I was like, all right, it's time to go. Like, surgery is over. It's not in my head anymore. Let's go. Game on. Now, it was such a big surgery, and I wasn't able to walk by myself or anything like that. And they needed to monitor me very closely, so I was in the intensive care unit for about 2 weeks. I may have I may have been in the intensive care unit, like that may have been the whole time I was there. I may have transferred to one of the regular floors for a couple days before I convinced the doctors to let me go home. They didn't really want me to go home yet, and my parents definitely didn't want me to, but I was like, I will recover faster and feel a lot better if I was in my own home and can go about this my own way. So I finally convinced them to let me go home. And I will say this isn't like a macho thing. I'm not just saying this to be macho or anything. I haven't cried very often my whole life. As a baby and as a kid, like excluding those times because like you're still developing and whatnot. Ever since I matured and know what it is to be a man, I just don't really cry. I don't find there's a good reason in crying because it doesn't get you anywhere. You just got to get up and do what you got to do. Like, crying's not going to change your circumstance, and none of that. So what is really even the point of it? Now I understand if maybe a close family member dies or something like that, and you want to just let it out. I'd probably recommend doing it like by yourself if you're trying to keep appearances up or whatnot, but just haven't been a big crier, right? And one of the only times I remember crying or shedding a tear is when I got home from the hospital, because I knew I made it from the surgery and it was time to get back to where I was. So once I got back, I thought that was it. Like, let's go. Time to get going. Let's get back into baseball, whatever. Recovery, I wasn't supposed to start doing anything active until 3 months after the surgery. But as a young go-getter and very impatient with things like that, because I feel like I can just do what I want to do. Like, probably best if you guys listen to your doctors. But I couldn't wait anymore. I started getting up off the couch because I couldn't go up the stairs yet. I still had assisted walking with someone helping me walk around. I was staying downstairs on the couch, so every day, a couple times a day, I would get up off the couch and walk around the kitchen a couple times. Started off with someone helping me, gradually progressed to doing it on my own, and it was just excruciating pain all the way down my back and in my head to where I couldn't stand up or sit upright for more than like 30 seconds. And I thought it was just like a healing pain. So I continued to do what I was doing, made sure I was getting rest and taking my medicine and everything else, but it just kept getting worse. So my parents actually ended up putting me in the back of the SUV we had at the time, and I laid in the back of the SUV on the entire way to Tampa to go to the hospital. And they did their tests and found out that I had a spinal fluid leak from the surgery. So they went ahead and gave me a blood patch, patched up the fluid leak, and I had to stay a couple more nights in the hospital. But then I was finally able to go home, and all that was over with. That is when I consider the actual recovery beginning, because before I wasn't making any progress because something was still wrong with me. So this is when the actual recovery began in my head. So like I said, it was supposed to be 3 months. Started back up with the kitchen laps. The pain in my head was better, so I was able to get a few more laps in. PRs, right? Personal records. And I still did need some help doing some things, and I was not very strong. I lost probably 30 pounds in the hospital because I was on so much medication and was feeling so bad that I just like wasn't able to eat. I wasn't very hungry. So I did lose like 30 pounds, a lot of muscle. I was very weak when I got home and after the surgery. So like I said, I did need some help moving around. Whenever I went to the shower, my mom would stand outside of the door and talk to me to make sure that I was doing all right, make sure I didn't fall, and be there just in case something bad happened. But little did she know, I don't think I ever told her this, but if I didn't, I know you're probably going to listen to this, Ma, so right when I was able to start taking showers, I knew my parents didn't want me to push myself too hard, and I knew the doctor didn't want me to push myself too hard, but I knew how far I could push myself. So I would get on the ground, right? So the first time I was able to take a shower, I got on the ground. Nobody was in the room with me, so nobody could stop me. Tried doing a push-up. And before the surgery, I was able to do like 50 push-ups in a row. Did them every single night. And I couldn't do a single push-up. I fell on my face, to put it shortly. So we had a counter right with the sink. So you could technically refer to them as incline push-ups, but it wasn't nearly as hard because the counter was kind of high. So it was about waist height, I guess, and you kind of can adjust how hard it is based on how close you put your feet to the counter. So I started with that. Started doing those easier incline push-ups, and I did them before the shower and after the shower. Ultimately, as I kept going to the shower, I was able to progress to a couple real push-ups on the ground. And after a month of recovering, keep in mind it was supposed to be 3 months before I did any physical activity, I just bugged my dad every single day. Probably after the first week of being home, I bugged him every single day. I was like, Dad, like, come on, I feel good. Let's go take some grounders. Like, let's head to the field. Come on, I need to be around the baseball field. Finally, after a month, I bugged him enough to let him take me to the baseball field and do some grounders. So I actually ordered some eye patches before, because double vision is not very fun, especially when you're trying to catch something. But something else people don't realize is when you put an eye patch over one of your eyes, you don't have any depth perception. So you may be able to see one image, but you have no idea how far away that thing is from you. So that was another obstacle I had to go through. Keep in mind, I was 14, so I was going through all of this stuff at a very young age, stuff that many adults will never even be able to say that they've done in a lifetime, right? And one of the funny things that my dad wanted me to mention was when I was either catching or hitting, there's two balls coming at you. So, you know what you do is you just swing for the middle. It might look like air, but you're probably going to make connection a lot more out of the time if you're seeing two baseballs coming at you by swinging in the middle than you would be if you try to swing at one of them. So it was a very tough time adjusting to these things at such a young age. But I didn't give up. I was committed. I knew that I could do it. I knew that if I put my mind to it, I could overcome whatever obstacle life threw at me. At any point along the way, everybody would understand if I gave up. They wouldn't give me any negative feedback or anything of the such, because being put through all of this trauma and change at such a young age, it's very understandable to have someone give up when being put through that. But giving up is just not in my blood. It's not even something that I could fathom. I wouldn't be able to live with myself if I gave up on something that was my dream and that I knew I could eventually surpass. So, with that said, freshman season comes around for tryouts, and my coach David Lee, one of probably the best coach I've had my entire baseball career, except for my dad. My dad's up there with him. He was very old school. So the freshmen, sophomores, juniors, and seniors all tried out together. He didn't care if you were on varsity last season. You have to try out again for varsity next season, or this season. So I was taking ground balls. We were doing conditioning because it was the fall. So we really started with conditioning. And like I said, he was old school. We started off our conditioning with like 1.5 miles. We did stadiums at the football stadium. a ton of conditioning. Like, somebody threw up every time we conditioned. At least one person. There were a couple kids who quit, of course. But as a freshman, I went in there, and right off the bat, every single day we had conditioning and practice, I went toe-to-toe with the seniors and his starting varsity players. Everybody would be coming back from the mile and a half, and I'd be in the top 3 every single time. And I have asthma, too. I have sports-induced asthma, so I would be running to the finish line, and he'd be standing there at the finish line, and I'd be like, like gasping for air. But I knew how hard I could push myself. And I was also trying to see how far I could push myself. And you never really know until you reach the point of exhaustion and passing out, I guess. So he saw something special in me right off the bat. So I spent my first year on the JV team and was kind of like shortstop, pitcher, kind of utility. JV season ended, and the varsity season is longer than the JV season. So he pulled me up to a varsity practice one day at the end of our JV season and comes up to me and he goes, "Have you ever caught before?" And I was like, I was a catcher in Little League. Like, growing up, I was a catcher sometimes. And he was like, "All right, throw on this gear," and puts me behind the plate in the bullpen and has our top pitcher at Eustis come out onto the mound, and he probably threw high 80s, low 90s. And again, I see 2 baseballs of, like, anytime someone throws a baseball at me. So, and being pitcher or shortstop or any other position in the field, except maybe first base, but I didn't play first base, you don't see baseballs coming at you that fast. So it was definitely an adjustment, but after that bullpen, he said, "Okay, you are now one of the catchers for our varsity team." So freshman season, got pulled up to varsity at the end of my JV season and finished the year on varsity. Coach David Lee was such a great guy. He saw potential in me, and he saw that I knew I could be more, when a lot of kids will just do the bare minimum to get the things that they want. Whereas I don't stop until I know I have to stop. So with that, during my freshman year, I actually became class president. I was the class president of my sophomore year as well. I transferred to the executive secretary, which is like executive oversees all of the grades. So I was the executive secretary for my junior year, and I chose that role to set me up to be the executive president for my senior year, which I did get. So I was just pushing myself as much as I could. After 6 months of the surgery and into my freshman year, the tumor grew back to its complete size. So I had to make a trip to Mayo Clinic in Minnesota, where I received gamma knife radiation, which was actually a pretty neat procedure that would also freak someone out. I think it was 15 maybe at the time. They took a brace and they bolted it into my skull with 4 screws while I was awake. It had a socket wrench, and he was bolting it in there. And they do that because when they put you in the machine for the radiation, they don't want you to flinch, because the radiation is directed at a certain point. It was directed at the tumor that grew back. And they didn't want you to like flinch, and then it hit something else and cause some pretty bad damage. So it's very reasonable that they put the brace on your head. So I got the gamma knife radiation, and it has been shrinking ever since. I ended up tearing my UCL throughout my high school season. I think I was in my junior year, maybe I tore my UCL going into my senior year, and I completely tore it. They recommended Tommy John surgery, but it would have put me out too long to confirm the recruiting process from multiple colleges. and I also wanted to play my senior season, and I wanted to be able to play my freshman season of college. And along the path of the pain, playing through the pain, I did get a PRP injection, but it only held me off for so long. So every single time I threw a ball, it felt like somebody was stabbing me right here with a knife. So with all the pain that came along, I ended up losing love for the game. With that said, I did get multiple college offers to play baseball. I took up one of them because it was close to my hometown, and it was a pretty high chance that my UCL wouldn't hold up. So worst case scenario, it didn't. I wouldn't be too far away from home, and I could keep going on my journey. So I did choose Lake Sumter State College, which was a junior college, but is now a Division II college. I was able to play a season for Lake Sumter, and I got the experience I wanted out of it. I got to play college baseball. I achieved the dream that I still had. And I like I said, I didn't really want to play in the majors anymore. So after my first year, I hung up the cleats, and I knew it was time to get going on my way and start on my entrepreneurial ideas. And in college, I'm now at UCF and getting internships and whatnot for my career in the future. But this just goes to show that I've been through all of these things. Everything that I discuss, I have went through firsthand. And I actually wanted to discuss a post that I made, 2 posts, while I was in the hospital. I meant to do this earlier, so it kind of stinks that I forgot to mention this. But this just shows that I saw everything firsthand, and I've always had this determined mindset and never give up attitude. So this post reads, most of the time when something bad happens to someone, they quit and give up and ask themselves, why did this have to happen to me? I feel as if, why not me? This is the perfect opportunity to be a blessing to somebody else. Do you know why people quit? It's because they don't have pride in what they do. And do you know why people stop? It's because they're selfish and it's just about them. But when you have a purpose to keep going and want to honor or sacrifice other people have made for you, it's easy to give it your all. People don't understand that when you quit, it becomes a habit and it will come back to haunt you later in life. If every decision and choice you make is just about you, at some point you're going to hit something a lot tougher than you, and it's going to make you quit because you don't have a driving force for why you do what you do. I look at this situation I'm in as an opportunity and nothing else, because once you realize that waking up every morning and being able to live life is a blessing, you ask yourself, how would you want to be remembered if you checked out today? This is bigger than you. And I do have to give some credit where credit is due. I listened a lot to Inky Johnson when I was going through all this. He was a very inspirational person for me while I was going through all of this at a young age. And I do believe some of those statements in that post were from Inky Johnson. And then this is also another post. Keep in mind, I did post both of these while I was laid up in the hospital after surgery. This one reads, no matter where life takes you, no matter what it is, everything is going to turn out just fine. As long as you trust your journey, work towards your goals in life, and never give up, only good things will come. Looking back at it, I've ran into many struggles throughout my life that I've surpassed. This is simply because I have the mentality that I will never give up, no matter what it comes to. I went through brain surgery, radiation, and many other procedures just at the age of 14 and 15. And here I am today, challenging life to send something more difficult to overcome my way. Nothing is impossible to do when you have the right mindset and attitude. If you think you're going through a rough time in your life right now, stop and think about all the times you've had to overcome an obstacle and you succeeded. Live and love life for what it is, because you never know what could happen that could prevent you from living your own life. I'll end this with a quote from Joseph Campbell. All the gods, all the heavens, all the hells are within you. You control your life. Be the best person you can be. So I think that'll wrap it up for today's podcast. I just wanted to give you guys my pass. I am sorry this did go 30 minutes. I didn't realize that I was talking about it for that long, but a lot of things did happen, so there's a lot to talk about, I guess. So I apologize again. It was 30 minutes. The next episode will just be like the first one. I'll have something that I'll want to talk about, probably like 2 or 3 things, and we'll go from there. So thank you guys for listening. If you made it all the way through, I applaud you because it's a 30-minute video and I don't have that many likes or subscribers right now. So I do really appreciate it if you made it all the way through. I'll see you next episode. Thank you so much for watching.